So the left side part is to open the existing projects, and the right side is to start with a new project altogether. And here we have multiple options here. Here it is like basic project types which you want to start with. Process is to automate any of your process, and you can publish that to your orchestrator and you can execute that process. And library is something that you will see once if you select any of these three, right, everything will be similar in terms of your development and all these things. Whatever you are automating your functions, you'll be doing in the similar way, but every option will have a different purpose. And if you select this library, that will be as a reusable components. Let us suppose if you want to log into an application, and that login option you have across multiple projects in your organization. So you can select this project, and once you publish this, right, this will be published as custom activities as a library. And if you want to utilize these workflows whatever we developed in the library, that you can install it from the managed packages, and you can use that as an drag and drop activities. We will see that as well. We will build for some of the reusable functions, and we will see how it is going to reflect. And the test automation is, in case if you are going with an automation testing. Oh, is it clear? My voice is clear or still it is breaking? Yeah, thanks. Thanks for this. So the test automation project is like in case if you are working on an or testing, when you are going for an automation testing, similar to like Selenium, you will be going for the testing, right? Automation testing, you'll be making the automation testing with the help of Selenium or QTP or Tosca. So here we will be automating your test cases with the help of UiPath. So for that, we will be starting with this test automation project. And the template is something that like we are not going to build a process, but we will be building a, like whatever the basic required functions are required, and we will build that and we will publish that as a library. And that we will see what actually the library, because when you are dealing with the RE robotic interface framework, RE framework, you might have came across this RE framework multiple times, right? It is a template which is built with the help of this only. And here are the templates where we can directly start our project. Either you can start from the process. In case if you are starting from this process, then it requires for you to build everything from the scratch. So you will not be having anything. You need to build each and every functions or the basic things and everything. But here the templates, the basic things are already available, and we can start your project implementation directly by selecting these things. And here you have the background process, orchestration process, mobile testing process, robotic enterprise process, and transactional process, trigger based automation. And we have more templates as well. If you go down, right, like you will see document understanding, and you'll be having a lot of templates. Like even you can build your own template based on your requirement. You can publish that to this your orchestrator, and you can see that. So here you can select like whether you want to your built-in, which means like only came from the UiPath, and marketplace, which is like built by their fellow developers, like other developers has developed and shared with the market. So we can see those. So here we have all the options what we can do. Local, there is nothing because we didn't develop anything. Orchestrator, we didn't publish any templates to our orchestrator. So here we can select based on our requirements, and from there we can directly start our project. So any queries till this place, like regarding the templates or? So I'm considering that there are no questions for now. Do we generally start always with any template? Yes, majority of the cases we will start with any of the templates, and most probably you'll be starting all your projects with the robotic enterprise framework, unless and until it, like sometimes we may need to start with the background process, because if you are going to build a completely background process, the advantage of it is you can run multiple automations on the same machine at same time in parallel, so you can optimize your robot utilization. So for that we may need to go for the background process. So based on our requirement we will be starting with any of the template, and even you will start with the process also. But why we are going with the robotic enterprise framework always is, you have the exception handlings and all these things in place, and your effort will be reduced to build all everything from the scratch. So in 99.99% you'll start with the template, and we'll go to the tools. See, we have three options, like apps, extensions, and plugins. So when you come to the apps, UI Explorer, which is nothing but like to see how your user interface, any browser interface or any desktop application interface, front end, whatever the fields or the forms we will be seeing, right? So everything we are going to deal with their HTML and CSS code. So to identify those CSS and CSS, HTML and CSS code, and the selectors by which the robot will identify the front end objects, that we, HTML code we can spy with the help of this UI Explorer. We can inspect that, and we can even tune those selectors. And the project dependencies mass update, like when we are getting the updates and all these things, so we will be utilizing this to update all the details at one go. But majority of the cases you will not get this. Very rare cases, if you are having very high volume processes and like more and more processes in your organization, like if you have 50 or 100, so in that case you can just manage your dependencies across all the projects. Repair tool for the office, Microsoft Office. So I never use this. XPath and frame IDs, everything. See, this will capture all those things. So we just need to select those checkboxes and all. And in case if you want to add any custom locators, you can add it. And this repair tool, I never used it. So what I'm thinking is, like, in case if the interaction with your UiPath and your Microsoft applications are not working as expected, so in that case, like, because we need to make some settings for the Microsoft applications to work with UiPath Studio. So we need to allow the programmatic access and all. So this may enable those things, but we generally do it manually. So I never use this. So it's very hard for me to comment. but my assumption is that we'll see that later. And the extensions. So when we call the UiPath extensions, which means which is going to act as a bridge to interact with such an applications for the UiPath robot. So to make the UiPath robot to interact with Google Chrome or Edge or a Firefox or any Java applet applications, Silverlight applications or RDP or VMware or Excel or SAP. So for those, we need to have these extensions to be installed. Without that, robot cannot interact with these applications. In that case, you may need to go with image-based automation, which is not that much reliable. In case your system resolution or uh, any color changes happens, then the automation will fail. So in order to interact with any of these applications, like how we generally interact, um, uh, let us take the example of if you are dealing with a desktop application, you can directly identify your selectors. Even if with your Internet Explorer, you can directly interact with that UI objects. But when you are dealing with a Chrome or Edge, you need to install these extensions. And everyone knows that when we are dealing with the Citrix, if you remember, if you came across anywhere, people will be started asking about the Citrix automations and all those things in the JDs. If you just go through the JDs, so you'll get the clarity of importance of each and every automations. So here you need to go with the image based automation. Previously it was like a hell like anything. Now after getting this extension, robot could able to work in similar to how it is interacting with the Chrome. So these are the extensions which will help us to directly interact with these applications. Questions on the extensions? Yeah, thanks. And the plugins. So see, we need to enable these things if we require these plugins or not. Like source controls, we have three options. One is Git, and the other is SVN, and the other is TFS. So SVN is an Apache open source. Git is Microsoft, and the TFS is Microsoft. So these are version controls where we can manage our code. In case if you by mistake you see, let us suppose you are building your code and you are keeping it on your local machine, there is a high possibility that your local may crash. So in this Git, it will not happen. Like if let us suppose you are keeping it in OneDrive or some remote drive, and you are saying that I don't have any problem of losing the code, but you made some changes to your code, and every time you are making the changes, you cannot copy and take the backup of the version, and we cannot keep such in such a way that here we will be, when you're using the source controls or version control, every time we are modifying the things, we will be pushing the code to that source control, and whenever we require, we can roll it back to the previous versions. So that option will be there. And also if you are putting in some local drive and four people are working on the same project in parallel, so it is not possible to, it is very hard to collaborate because everyone will be making their own changes on different files, right? So here in the Git, everyone can make their own changes and they can push that to the Git or SVN or TFS. Like end of the story, like it's a source control or a version control. So they can push that back to the version controls and source controls, so that your code collaboration work will work, and at the same time your code changes will be always safe. And test explorer and test manager, these two are required for the people who are interested in the automation testing with the help of UiPath. So test manager and the test explorer are related to purely automation testing, and we may not go directly into these videos, but there are few videos which are available on my channel, and you can go through related to the test manager. So that you can go through those videos only if you complete the basic writings. Like you should have the complete understanding of UiPath Studio. Then only you can able to work with other products of UiPath. Without having knowledge on UiPath Studio, you cannot start with any of the products of UiPath. And here we will go with the templates. So templates we already discussed when we are discussing here the need for the templates. So here you can build any of the templates and you can publish them and you can utilize them. And templates will be kind of a starting point of your process team. So if you see here, right, we have only Git, the source control repository, like team collaboration work. So to interact with the repository, all the options we will be having here. And now we could able to see only the Git. But if you see here plugins, we have three options. So let us enable it. I'm just for time being, I'm just enabling SVN and I'm restarting this. So let us go to the team. Now I have the SVN as well. So we can select from tools and plugins. We can select it from here, which repository we want to deal with. So it's up to us. So it depends on the organization. To organization, which version control they are going to follow. Because the version control is not only specific to UiPath, for any developers or any programming language, for anything, the source control is required. So the people will be already some source control will be in place. So we will be utilizing the same source control or version control. Which UiPath extension we should install in our system? See, tools, UiPath extensions. So when you want to work with only Chrome, you'll install only the Chrome extension. If you want to, like your interactions, your robot interactions are with which application? So for that application only, we will install the UiPath extension. Like in case if you doesn't want to interact with Google Chrome, and you want to interact with only Edge, then you will install the Edge extension. So based on which application your robot is interacting and which application you will be utilizing as part of your process, you are going to install those extensions. Clear, Akash? Okay. Now the settings. So the settings, whatever the settings we have here, these are at the project level test settings. Sorry, these are not the project level settings. These are at the studio level settings. You can change your theme to dark. So some people will like only the black screens. Some people will like only the white screens. So you can change all these things. Design. So if you see here, right, object repository enforced and use modern design. So we can just enable or disable our options, whatever we want to have. Use only C#. So we can just change our settings, and it is not necessary to know each and everything. But in case, let us suppose you created a project and it is automatically created for the modern design, and you want to use the classic and you doesn't want to use the modern. So you should be aware that like from where you need to change these settings, and some project level settings will be always from here. Like we have some analyzer, workflow analyzer, and all these tools, and you just need to make it mandatory, or it is not necessary to make it mandatory. So it is up to us. So we can just enable this, like if before you are publishing, it will analyze, and if errors are there, it will not go. So for all this, we can just modify our settings based on our requirements and as per the organization standards and the project requirements. So you see, open project behavior. When you open the project, like see, when we are clicking on this open, right? So project file, it is saying you'll be taking this project.json. If not, if you are taking the workflow file and taking it, whatever the workflow file you are opening, that file will be opened. If you are taking this project files and if you are open this project.json, we just need to specify that whether to open the main file or last open tab or without opening any of the file. So we can select it from here. And when you're publishing the project, uh, because you'll be publishing it to the orchestrator, which means like it is going for an API interaction. That may take a time based on your internet stability and all. In case if it is not successful in 30 seconds, it will fail, it will throw an error. So we can change this timeout more than 30 seconds. And the help is like what are the different resources we have in order to start with UiPath and the UiPath ecosystem. Like we have the academy, we have product documentation, release notes. Release notes is something that like for version to version, what changes they are giving us. And we don't have a couple of, yeah, we have the community forum, and which they might have mentioned the marketplace as well. They didn't mention. We are going to see all those things later. And we can see the version of the UiPath Studio, what we are using. Okay. So this is about the interface what we have before we start with the project. So now we are open for the questions for this particular before opening of the process, and we will deal with once we start with the process what are the different interfaces we have that we will look. But for now, if you have any questions related to any of the things which we discussed, please let me know. I'm assuming that like you don't have any queries. I'll be opening the existing project in order to show you the existing. So this is the interface when you create your first project. So first, let us see the panels. And when you come to the project panel, you can see all the dependencies whatever we have for this particular project, and the different workflow files whatever we have created, and all our project files and the project related dependencies we will be having here. And here like we can open the project folder from this file explorer, and we can make the project file settings. So these are the project level settings we can utilize like we can change like based on our project requirements. If you just come here, the activities settings, so we have a different activities. So the actions whatever the robot needs to perform, that will be done with the help of activities. And when we are calling about the activities, we have a different categories of the activities. So each activity category will have some value default values for a couple of properties, and that can be managed from the project level as well. So all those settings you can see here in the project level settings. So you'll get to know this when we are dealing with the UI automation. Then we are going to explain all these properties which are required for this. So we can make the changes, or we can control all the configurations at the project level. And we have the activities panel, where we will be having the activities, which means the actions to be performed, which means if you search as a click, in order to make the click we can use this click activity. So these are the activities are nothing but the actions which needs to be performed by the robot are called activities. And we can see all these activities here. And if you click on this, like every activity will be expanded. If you click on this, like everything will be minimized. So better to have it the category level. And we can just have it by search by description, or we can group the activities. Like for now we are going with the category, but you can go with the package as well. Package in the sense the library, we can say. So better to have it at the category level. And we have the filters. We can have the classic activities and modern activities as well, so which we are going to see going further. I'm not sure like whether you could able to see this properly or not. Let me change the theme to light theme. The activities will be the actions needs to be performed, and we will be seeing all these activities. In case if we are not having any activities available for us to do any operations, we will see that like how we can import any new activities, or how we can import any new libraries. And snippets are like already built in workflows. We can even publish as the snippets to our library, in case if you have some workflows which are of reusable in nature, and we can use them. So it will be like this activity or whatever we have, right? All these activities are built as a snippet and group of activities, we can say. It is not a workflow, it is kind of a sequence. Because if you are saying that these are the workflows, that will be under the project. So there will be a difference between these two. These are something that like activities are already grouped, and we can just have it as a snippet. And very rare cases you will be using the snippets. Object repository panel is like in case if you are capturing any UI objects as part of your modern design approach, and we will be utilizing this instead of using the selectors means the HTML and CSS code. So we will be utilizing this objects in order to automate your UI interactions, and all those objects will be available here, and we'll see that in the session of modern design concepts. And the properties of each and every activity whatever we have. Let us take this assign activity. So we'll see the properties of this here. What are the different properties we have for these actions? We will see those properties here. Outline. So whatever the project we have developed or a sequence we have developed, right? So you can see that how it was developed. So we have a main sequence, under that like we have an assign activity. And let us do one thing, let us bring one more sequence. Inside that, let us have this assign. If you go to the outline, you can see, right? We have a sequence and we have a main. If you expand this, like you have assign activity and then sequence, and inside that we have an assign. So we have, we can see like how our code is developed and what are the different we have actions we have inside of our code. So let me delete. And the data manager. So this data manager is something that it is bit very high um, advanced concepts, like when you are dealing with the data services and the orchestrator assets and the queues, all these concepts when we are coming across as part of our real-time project, we will deal from directly from the data manager. So we can have this, like whatever the resources we are supposed to have, those resources we can just directly put, like we can see those in the data manager. And test explorer is related to the automation testing, which is not required for us as of now. So, and here we have output panel. When we are executing our process, we can see the traceabilities, or whatever errors you see, or whatever um, the log messages or a write lines, we will we will be tracing. This can be helped as a tracing when we are executing our process. And we will see, like when we are building the automations, how this will output panel will help us to identify how our process is working. And the error list is in case if we have any validation errors. Let us suppose this we have an error, and if you are trying to run this, so you'll get the errors in the error list. In the output also you have this error message. So we will be utilizing these for the traceability purpose, and if any errors are occurred, we can identify them. And the breakpoints panel is like we will be utilizing them when we are dealing with UI automations. Sorry, not UI automation, when we are debugging the process. And we have variables panel, arguments panel, and imports panel. Variables panel is to create our variables or modify our variables or deal with our variables, whereas the arguments are to the similar way, creation and modifying of our or managing our arguments. And the imports are something that, like in case if you are dealing with any of the um, methods or functions which are by default not available as part of this, and in that case we will be importing those namespaces. We generally call this as a namespaces, system dot collections or system dot. If you see, right, in the C programming language you'll be having hash include, or in Java or Python we will be having import, and in C sharp you will be having using. So we will be writing all these namespaces, like where we will be having the different methods which we want to utilize. So those method namespaces we will be importing here in case if some namespace is missing as per our requirement. This is imports panel. And here we have the home tab, which is like which we already discussed, and when we will be getting at the starting of our automation process. And the design tab will have a lot of ribbon will have a lot of options as part of our automation process. We can leverage them, like for creating of new sequences, saving, and in case if you want to create it as a library or a template, we can directly export. Okay, in the output panel we have a different colors, right? Here it is error, and this is warning, and this is information, this is trace, and this is These two are related to the test automation, like whether the test case is failed or a passed. And in case if you click on this, right, you'll get the timestamp as well, at what time it was happened. You can just manage it as well. This is time related. And in case if you click this, you'll not be seeing that because you doesn't want to see it. Like you can just enable or disable to see your required log message as well. And see why trace and info, warning and error, these are the, we generally call it as a log levels. So the trace level is not necessary for us to care also. That's the reason for which it will be of very light color. And the information log message is something that we just need, we are printing it for the information level. So it will be of some thick black color only. These two will be of same color, but here it will be very light color and this will be bit dark color. So if you see, right, these are the trace levels. And if you click here, right, so this is info level. And warning is something that, like, it looks to be like an error, but it will not impact your process, but you may need to have your attention to see whether it is working as expected or not, and if some action needs to be taken. And the error is something that, like, it is an error which we need to resolve. Clear? So we will to execute or a debug of our process, we will be utilizing this. And so we will come to the manage packages, like where we want to import any new libraries and all, we will be doing that. And so accept the test manager and all the other things we will be utilizing as part of our curriculum. And the manage entities, which is to deal with the data service. If you remember, we discussed about the data service products, right? And that data service, we will be utilizing this manage entities, and that we are going to cover as part of our project. And these are the recordings we have in UiPath. And by default, we have like app or web browser, right? But in case if I change it to the classic, from here we can change it to the classic, because majority of the questions still the people are asking on the classic only, because even in industry also people are still dealing with the classic. So if you click here, we have all the options to for the recordings. And we have the screen scrapping, data scrapping, and UI Explorer. UI Explorer we already discussed as part of our tools. And the debug tab. Debug tab is that, like, we will be doing a step-by-step execution to see how our process is working and if any error is occurred, and we will be seeing that, like, why it was occurred and how, where it was occurred, and all these things we can manage. And not only those, we can do the step by step execution, and we can see how the values are getting reflected, and we can do many things in order to identify the errors. And even the error is occurred, to stop, it's not necessary to stop the process, and we can continue to check our rest of the process is working as expected or not. And when we are doing with the debug, right, let me do one thing. I'll put a breakpoint and click on a debug. Now a new additional panel scale, like you have the project activity snippets, output, error list, test manager, like all these panels are we have previously also. Now we got the call stack, which is of a new panel, locals, watch, immediate. So we will see how we can utilize all this. Like when we are dealing with some values are available and some actions are available, right? We will see like how this local, from locals, how we can see the value of any variable, which is like the expression producing any value, and even in the immediate panel, and how we can utilize this watch, and how we can utilize this call stack, and all these things we can see that when we are dealing with the debug. So these are the different interfaces we can have a discussion. So we had a discussion. And any queries related to the interfaces or any options till now we discussed, or if you are curious to know something very urgent, till we before we utilize that, please let me know. So at the project panel, you have the settings option, right? If you click on this project settings, here you can see the modern design experience. If you enable this, you'll see the modern design policy, everything. If you see that, right, app and web browser, web recorder. So this is like modern design. If you go here and if you disable this modern design experience, you'll see the classic. So we are not going to enable the classic. We are disabling the modern design experience. Any questions, guys? Okay. Now, if you see about the workflows, right? You come here, here we have different workflow files. So for now, let us not talk about the global exception handler and workflow, because workflows is an empty file. If I create a workflow, it is an empty, it doesn't have anything. And we have like three type of workflows here. One is sequence, and the other is flowchart, and the other is the state machines. Sequence is nothing but it's an empty sequence, how it looks like in the workflow. It's a basic thing. To go to the flowchart, you'll see this flowchart thing. Like you'll be having a start node, and you can have multiple sequences or activities inside it, and you can just connect them with the help of nodes. Whereas in the sequence, it will be one after the other. Like here in this, you just need to keep one after the other, like assign, sequence. So in this way only, it will be one after the other. But here it is like we will be connecting with the nodes, how the execution flow should work. This is the flow chart. And if you go to the state machines, it is completely a new concept. So here you will be having states. You'll be having a state, you'll be having one more state, you'll be having final state. So you just need to have the state, and from one state to the other, like you can have multiple transactions as well. And like it can be like again from this state to this state as well. So you can have in this way. So in the flowchart, like you'll be having some limited, but in here it will be like you can have multiple scenarios as well, like entry and exit criterias, and you can have more and more. You can build more and more complex automations with the help of state machines. And for sure, we are going to discuss the state machines as part of our RE framework, because the RE framework is built using this state machines workflow. And as part of our regular automations, we will not deal with the state machines like other than the RE framework. And majority of the cases, we will be creating our individual required workflows, either with the help of sequence or a flowchart. And there is another thing which came up, like here it is the template. and we can create some templates. And when you're creating your workflow, right, it will ask you to select. So when, see here in the workflows, right, when we created the workflow last time, it is directly we got the sequence. But here you can select whether you want to go with a sequence or a flowchart or a state machines. So that's the reason for which when we say different workflow types in UiPath, we call them as sequence, flowchart, and state machine, because these three workflow types are inbuilt workflow types for us. So based on our requirement, we will be creating all these things. Any questions? Guys, now we are open for the questions, and we covered till the interfaces. And from tomorrow, we are going to cover our actual curriculum of like variables creation and all. What is the use of object repository? Yes, in when we are dealing with, yeah, when we are dealing with object repository, like generally we will be dealing our UI automations with the help of selectors. But as part of the modern design concept, they came up with this object repository. So all the selectors we will be managing in the objects only, and those objects we will be utilizing as part of our automation workflow. And in case if any application is got changed, it is not necessary for us to go to each and every activity and see or update those selectors. We just need to update at the objects, and so that like our workflows will be reflected. So it will reduce your effort to validate your workflow and go to each and every activity to see whether the changes are reflected or not. So you just need to check only in the objects and you just need to modify it. Apart from these three, can we create custom workflow type as well? Yes, we can do that. Let us suppose I want to create a new sequence, new workflow template, and here I'll be using a simple log message. Template for workflow, and I have created it. We'll go to this, right click, extract as a template, create. Now I'll go to the new workflow. Here I can see new workflow template for template. So we can do that. Did you got good, perfect. Any more questions, guys? So, from tomorrow, if you are interested in continuing the sessions, you may need to make the payment of 10,000 from this URL, which I shared in the chart, and again I'm sharing it. and you can make the payment with multiple payment methods. Like you can go with UPI or credit card or net banking or a wallet or EMIs. So based on your card and all. So please make your payment and confirm your payment receipt on my email ID or my WhatsApp number. So that like by end of the day, whatever whoever I received, I'll share the meeting invite to only those folks by end of today. Okay. And if you doesn't have any questions, we'll wrap up the session and we'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. And to continue with the sessions, please make the payment at this place.